lasting impact. Learn more at cftampabay.org.
Some activists are challenging a law that gives pregnant women preferential treatment. The law gives them access to parking spaces reserved for people with disabilities. But people against the law say they need those spaces because there aren't enough places to park. I'm Kathy Carter, and today on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about why this new law is considered both helpful and a nuisance. What do you think? Call us up at 813-755-6562, or you can email us FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And later, burlesque. It's seductive, it's cheeky, and it's empowering. This plus your calls and more. It's Florida Matters Live and Local. Back after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in New York City, I'm Duahlisa Kautal. U.S. military forces have destroyed another small boat allegedly smuggling drugs in the Pacific. NPR's Quill Lawrence reports U.S. Southern Command says one man aboard was killed.
A video posted by the U.S. military shows a small boat under fire and then in flames. The Trump administration says it is at war with drug cartels and can therefore kill suspected traffickers even if they are unarmed. Dozens of boats have been hit since September, killing more than 100 people. Critics in Congress and experts on the laws of war say that's murder. President Trump has mentioned the strikes as a way to pressure Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whom he accuses of narco-trafficking. At a press event yesterday, President Trump said it would be smart for Maduro to step down. The U.S. has strict sanctions on Venezuela, and now the U.S. Coast Guard has begun seizing massive tankers carrying Venezuelan crude oil. Trump said the U.S. may keep or sell the oil. Quill Lawrence, NPR News.
A federal judge has ruled the deportations of more than 100 Venezuelans to El Salvador were illegal. NPR immigration correspondent Jimena Bastillo reports early in the Trump administration, the U.S. deported numerous men to a prison in El Salvador after President Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act.
The White House has accused the men without evidence presented in court of being members of the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua. The deportations prompted several legal fights over the use of this law, and it brought to the forefront also the administration's clashes with judges. Boasberg was among the judges to first question the use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport Venezuelans in this way, and the judge has threatened the government with contempt for disobeying his order to stop the plane.
She said some of the imprisoned men described to NPR reporters unsanitary conditions, sexual abuse, and one man called it, quote, hell on earth. The men have since been returned to their home country. The Commerce Department says the U.S. economy grew at an annual rate of 4.3%. That's much faster than expected in the third quarter. NPR's Alina Selyuk reports.
Between July and September, the report shows the U.S. economy growing at a robust pace, accelerating from the growth seen in the previous quarter. Earlier in the year, the economy had actually shrunk as companies rushed to ship foreign goods ahead of President Trump's global tariffs. Consumers remain the key engine, driving the growth with higher spending, especially on healthcare. The report calls out spending on hospital and nursing home services and on prescription drugs. People also spent more on, quote, information processing equipment. That could be computer hardware, presumably as part of the AI boom. At the same time, business and residential investment declined in the third quarter. Spending by state and local governments increased. Alina Selyuk, NPR News, Washington.
And this is NPR from New York.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Quicksilver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7 News. I'm Sky LeBron. A record 7.5 million Floridians are expected to travel between now and New Year's, up slightly from last year. Nearly 90% of those traveling will be driving to their destinations, but record air travel is also expected. AAA spokesman Mark Jenkins says the top 3 domestic destinations nationally are Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. Tampa ranks 6th. He says be ready for crowded roads and airports, especially on specific days.
If you are looking to travel and you want to avoid the congestion, the lightest days out on the road will likely be on the actual holidays themselves, whereas the days leading up to and then after the holidays are when you're going to see more traffic out there on the roadways.
If you're driving, gas prices are relatively cooperating. The average cost of a gallon of unleaded in Florida is currently $2.86. That's up 7 cents from a week ago, but 14 cents a gallon cheaper than a year ago. People across the globe are celebrating the holidays this year. That includes people who are off this planet, too. Central Florida Public Media's Brendan Byrne reports on how astronauts celebrate holidays in space.
Despite being 250 miles above Earth, holidays on the International Space Station aren't that different from how we celebrate down here. Crew members share a meal together, exchange gifts, and even speak with their families back home. That connection is important to people living and working on the station, says veteran NASA astronaut Nicole Stott.
What's so great about the way we fly in space as humans on the International Space Station is that's always been considered from the beginning, is we want our crew members to have that connection with their family and friends.
While Stott didn't spend Christmas in space, Mission Control planned for it, just in case her return was delayed. NASA sent up presents from her family via rocket, so she had gifts to open. Celebrations like that will continue this year. Currently, there are 7 people on the International Space Station and 3 aboard China's space station. I'm Brendan Byrne in Orlando.
For more news that matters to you in the greater Tampa Bay region and across the state of Florida, head to WUSF.org. You are listening to WUSF 89.7 News.
This year, stories from the NPR archives that touch on the meaning of Christmas, our hopes, and our fears. David Sedaris, Bailey White, Scott Simon, these and other voices of NPR past and present, telling stories of the season in an hour-long Christmas special. I'm Lynn Neary. Join me for Tinsel Tales from NPR.
Tuesday evening at 9 on WUSF 89.7, your spot for local.
You're listening to Florida Matters live and local. We're broadcasting from the Doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio at WUSF in Tampa. I'm Kathy Carter. I'm filling in for Matthew Petty today. Well, what's the first thing you think of when you find out your neighbor is getting backyard chickens? Well, that was a rooster, which is not allowed, thankfully. Nobody wants to hear that at 4 o'clock in the morning. We are talking about hens. You're seeing more and more as people are falling in love with fresh eggs and tending coops in suburban neighborhoods across the greater Tampa Bay area. And the latest place to allow backyard chickens is Pasco County. After years and years of debate, its commission recently passed an ordinance allowing residents to raise chickens in their backyards. Finally, after 14 years, District 3 Commissioner Catherine Starkey said following the unanimous vote last month. Support for the ordinance came from families who said raising hens could help with rising egg prices, and they said kids can learn more about responsibility. Are you raising hens in your backyard? Are you a fan of fresh eggs? Call and join the conversation. It's 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or you can email us. It's FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, joining us now is Patty Gale of St. Petersburg. She's part of the family-owned store known as Amber Glen Feed and Depot and Pet Supply. She also runs the Chicken Chat. It's an online forum to talk about raising chickens at home. Thanks for joining us, Patty.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, tell us all about Amber Glen. When did you start seeing urban farmers coming into your store?
I would say 2020. The COVID kind of brought it out. A lot more urban farming, a lot more people developing their backyards to become more sustainability. It has grown huge. So.
Yeah. Makes sense that it started during the pandemic.
Yeah, and we carry everything that people could want, from gardening all the way to we actually sell chicks. We actually do a lot of chickens, a lot of farm animal type stuff.
Well, there are different rules depending on the county, the city, and even within homeowners association rules. One universal ban is those roosters. They are notoriously noisy, Patty.
Yes, ma'am, they are. If you still are on farm property, you can have a rooster, but other than that, no roosters. And it's just like that sound you played, and it is like that. We own a farm also, so we have a lot of chickens and roosters, but people don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Well, you can have hens, though. And here are some local examples we learned from cityhubgo.com. It describes itself as a resource for backyard chicken owners. Now, everything we're about to read to you, roosters are banned. So in Tampa, you can have a maximum of 10 hens. The coop can be a maximum 6 feet high, 125 square feet. You don't need a permit. In St. Petersburg, you can have 8 hens. Has to be 10 feet from property lines. Again, no permit needed. Clearwater, you allowed 6 hens, 25-foot setback. And in Lakeland, up to 12 hens on residential lots. Again, no permit needed. Does your neighbor raise chickens? Are you not a fan? Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562, or you can always email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Patty, are you surprised that it took so long for Pasco County to approve backyard chickens?
I am. I really am, because chickens are amazing. They teach responsibility, but they also are pets. They're very smart. People don't realize that they can learn tricks. They can do all kinds of fun things. And then they also give us eggs. And I was surprised that of all the places that just picked up this ordinance and allowing it is Pasco. I mean, Pinellas Park, you can still have 10 chickens. It is just a great part to add to your family, to add to your backyard. And they are, right? I was telling you, you should have chickens because they change your life. There's even such a thing as chicken math. So,
you know, my brother had chickens, and one of them was really aggressive. So frankly, I'm chicken about chickens, but I'm sure some of them are lovely. They do have different personalities.
They do. They all have different personalities, and that hen is probably the rooster because somebody has to protect everybody.
Sure.
So, yeah, but they're not all like that.
Great. Well, what are the usual pros and cons when somebody's thinking about, I'm going to start getting backyard chickens?
I always tell people, keep it simple. The internet makes it hard, but keep it simple. And remember, we're in Florida. So you want open air coops. You want something that keeps it we have more summer than anything else, and it gets way too hot. You want to remember that they don't lay for the first average 6 months. So you're supporting freeloaders for 6 months. You're getting nothing except for the great, the love and so forth. And that's when people start falling in love with them. But also, the con side of it is you got to prepare for flies. You got to prepare for when it rains and that everything stays dry. And there's a lot of different easy products that, especially if you go to farm stores and talk to the people and don't buy the gimmicks, it won't happen. And you won't bother your neighbors who don't have chickens. And if your neighbors do have some issues with things, give them free eggs. That usually will always, cross that path of like, hey, here's some eggs. And they're like, I love you. Right. I want free eggs.
Okay. Well, we actually have a caller who has a question for you. Lily is on the line. John is on the line, and he's from Sarasota, and he wants to know about rules in Sarasota. Would you happen to know anything about that?
I don't. I always tell people check your county, and then you also have to check your city because it's different depending on what you're zoned.
Okay.
So every zoning is a little bit different. But just go right to your city building department, and they should tell you what their ordinances are.
Perfect. Now, we did have somebody on the line earlier. We dropped them, but they had a great question, so I'm going to ask you, what do you do with your chickens? We have so many hurricanes here in Florida. What's the process of getting your coop ready for hurricanes?
We do it on the Chicken Chat a hurricane prep, but we tell people don't leave them behind, but you can take them with you a lot of the times depending on where you're evacuating to. They're easy to transport, super easy to transport, and or have it if you're staying in a place that they can go into, either your garage, somewhere that's not going to flood. If it you got to move them with you. They can't fly. So have that in your preparations, everything ready to go. And we come up with some great ideas. I have a lot. We have a semi-trailer on my farm property. That's where all the chickens was into the semi-trailer.
Okay. Now, Amber Glenn hosts that live show. It's called Chicken Chat, we spoke about earlier. Tell us what kind of advice and conversations usually take place on this forum.
We open it to any questions. So everybody's got something different because everybody's coop or chickens are different. So we just cover what, if you've got disease, and when I say disease, chickens aren't I don't want to scare somebody, but, as far as if you got different things going on or they're not feeling good, what's your bedding that you use, what kind of chickens, what's going on. And it's just a place that people can ask and get personal advice. And then you have a lot of experts out there that raise a lot of chickens. They too can come on and say, hey, I tried this, try this. And it's just it's a family group of people that in the chicken community, you become family.
Okay, wonderful. We have Lily back on the line. She had that question about the hurricanes, but let's see if Lily from Brandon has any other questions she'd like to ask Patty. Hey, Lily, how are you?
Hi there. I had pet chickens for years. How do you suggest we keep our neighbors happy when they're occasionally hearing a noisy bird in our backyard?
Give them eggs.
Yep.
Everybody loves eggs. Give them eggs. And sometimes, too, if you go to your neighbors and you say, hey, I'm getting chickens. This is, what, you may hear some noises. Come to me and I'll fix it if there's a problem. And then give them eggs.
Right. That's a really something that will always be helpful is giving somebody fresh eggs. And I like your point. You also said, maybe warn them ahead of time. Like you might be hearing some noises. If you have any concerns, let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And it's nice too because then you don't get everything involved when it could be an easy fix. It could just move the coop, or you may have a chicken that's really loud and you just need to modify something.
We have John is back on the line from Sarasota. Let's see what John has to say. Hey, John, how are you?
This is Jono, and I wanted to share our experience here in Sarasota. It took 18 months in the city of Sarasota to get backyard chickens legalized, and 7 years to get backyard chickens legalized in the unincorporated county. Everybody thought it would be easier in the county because they assumed it was more rural, but it was a tougher fight. And I'll just add that the requirements are no more than 4 hens, and the coop has to be movable. And the movable coop really helps, as was just suggested. If there's a neighbor complaint, you can just drag or roll it over to another part of your yard, and it gives the chickens a chance to access different areas. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, Jono. Thank you for weighing in on it. So now we have the answer for Sarasota.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
for that, Jono. You know what? What predators, Patty, should people worry about if they're thinking of raising chickens in their backyard?
Believe it or not, I'm right in the middle of Pinellas Park, which is right in the middle hub of the most densely populated county. And so we have coyotes, we have raccoons and that's going to be throughout Florida. So you want to make sure, remember that you want somewhere that the chickens can go and roost and that you can close them in and they're safe. So you've got coyotes, you got raccoons, you got possums, you got other people's dogs that may get in the yard. Cats don't really bother them, small domestic cats. Now, there are areas that have the bobcats still, but they know that the chickens are free at night because the chickens can't see. So they're easy to get. So just, there's a lot of, and we talk about that, but there's a lot of ideas out there just to make sure something can't dig underneath, something can't get through the wire. Use something secure that's going to keep them safe at night.
Perfect. We have Douglas on the line now. He's actually an attorney that represents folks that have chickens in Tampa. Douglas, hello.
Hello, yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And happy Christmas to all, and post-Hanukkah and Kwanzaa.
Thank you.
But no, now we got it all out of the way. No, I just wanted to know if there were resources, because I'm on a local CRA or a thorn to the side there too. And so I've had a lot of clients who were cited, some erroneously, some actually, for having chickens. And it was a whole protracted affair where this code enforcement is trying to come to the house and people are working. Thousands of dollars later, it all gets sorted out, though. But I wanted to kind of ask, what resources did the average Joe Schmo have if they were wrongfully cited for code enforcement, or more importantly, other organizations?
Okay, thank you, Douglas, for that question. We have about 30 seconds, Patty.
Okay.
Can you answer
Absolutely.
Douglas' question, please?
There is a lot of resources. Well, as far as educating the city on what is the statute rules on farm animals. That's your number one go-to, and then you go to your ordinance, and then just trying to work together to get it, covered with your code enforcement and what the problem is, and then education.
Okay. Well, we've been speaking to Patty Gale. She's part of the family-owned store known as Amber Glen Feed Depot and Pet Supply. She also runs the Chicken Chat. You can learn more. It's an online forum to talk about raising chickens at home. Patty, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Merry Christmas and happy holidays.
Thank you. You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local.
I'm Indira Lakshmanan. We'll have the latest on U.S. Coast Guard activity in the sea surrounding Venezuela. American forces are in active pursuit of another vessel in international waters as tensions in the region continue to escalate. That's next time on Here and Now.
Hi, I'm Malika Halls with Arts Access Florida, and I'm sending you all the joy and creativity of the season. May your days be merry, nights cozy, and your art supplies never mysteriously disappear. Cheers to ending the year bright, and a big thank you to our sponsors, Community Foundation Tampa Bay. Happy holidays!
I'm Helen Lee. I'm a WUSF Stephen Noble digital social news intern. During my time at WUSF, I've learned to write clearly, concisely, and with you in mind. Being part of the newsroom has given me hands-on reporting experience alongside professional journalists. You allow us to grow into the next generation of storytellers. Thank you so much for your support.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter. Well, activists are challenging a law that allows expectant mothers to park in spaces reserved for people with disabilities. The law was passed back in July. It allows pregnant people to purchase a temporary disabled person's parking pass for $15. They can park in these reserved parking spaces for up to 1 year. WUSF's Carrie Sheridan has been covering this story. She spoke with Michelle Hennigan from Central Florida, who uses her pass at work. She works at two pretty big companies.
Both of those facilities have a lot of employees, so therefore parking is very, very far away from the facilities. So I use it in that regard. So especially being 9 months pregnant in the summer in Florida.
Olivia Keller filed a lawsuit against the law. She says there are already not enough reserved spaces for people with disabilities.
Can you describe for me how often do you find it difficult to park when you want to go out?
Oh, all the time. I learned that the best way people seem to understand this, if you're not in that situation yourself, is to imagine that every day of your life is Black Friday when you're going around a parking lot trying to find space and searching for parking. So, I mean, it's not uncommon that I have to build, hours into my day sometimes to accommodate that. And it really does create a lot of, in disability spaces, we call it parking anxiety. And a lot of us have it of, oh my God, I need to go do this thing. I have to be there at a certain time. It's really important that I be there on time.
Well, here to tell us more about this law and the lawsuit is WUSF's Carrie Sheridan. Carrie, thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
Carrie, how did this all begin? Why was this law created in the first place?
That's actually a conservative think tank that's been behind the crafting of a lot of this language in Washington, D.C. The Ethics and Public Policy Center has similar bills have been introduced in Ohio, New Jersey, and Arkansas. Illinois already has a law that allows pregnant women to get a parking permit in a disabled space, but that's only in the last 3 months of pregnancy, and it only lasts for 90 days. So Florida's law goes much further.
Okay, so tell us about the details of the law here in Florida.
So in Florida, you can apply, if you're pregnant, you get a note from your obstetrician, and you can apply for a disabled parking permit for a whole year. And it doesn't matter if you have any conditions that would normally be considered a disability, and it doesn't matter if you're about to give birth the next day, you can still use that parking pass for a full year from the time you get it.
Now, why is this law important for pregnant women? You've been speaking to some of them. What are some of the reasons they give you?
Well, the idea came from, it's sort of a pro-family policy. The conservatives that are working on this language say, it encourages women to have more children, makes it easier for them to get around when they're pregnant or when they have young children, babies that they have to get in and out of the car. People that are pregnant, I've been pregnant in the summer, Kathy, in Washington, D.C. It's hot up there in August. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's uncomfortable, for sure. So some people see it as a perk in a sense that it allows women who are pregnant to get closer to where they need to go. But the people who really need those spots who are disabled say it really shouldn't be considered a perk at all.
Right. Well, are the pregnant people, able to extend it beyond the year that is now?
No, just 1 year, just 1 year.
Are there any other limits on applying for a pass for people who are pregnant?
Apparently, if you use a nurse midwife, you may not be eligible, but if you have an obstetrician's note, you can apply, pay your $15, and get it for a whole year. Yeah.
Well, this shouldn't be a hard question to answer, but give us some of the reasons that disabled activists are against this law.
Well, it comes down to the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was passed in 1990. It's a law. It's a civil rights law, and it allows for people who have disabilities to be full members of society. And that includes having access to parking spaces. So for them, they see it as this is eroding a right that they're guaranteed by the federal government. That's a big part of this lawsuit, too. The lawyer representing Olivia Keller, who you just heard from, says this is a federal versus state issue. It's just the state cannot supersede federal law by giving parking spaces away to other people.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're speaking to WUSF's Carrie Sheridan about her reporting on passes for pregnant people. Do you know if a lot of people are applying for this pass, Carrie?
Indeed. I asked the Florida Department of Highway and Motor Vehicles how many people have applied since it became law. It's more than 8,000.
What?
So 8,000 of these permits have been handed out as of, I think it's November 20th. So it's probably could be even over 10,000 by now, but it's about 8,000 as of the latest number.
If you have any questions for Carrie Sheridan, who's been reporting on this topic, or if you'd like to weigh in, you can call 813-755-6562, or you can email us FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. I understand, Carrie Sheridan, there is a local connection that Fiona McFarland from Sarasota introduced this bill.
That's right. In a March subcommittee meeting, she introduced it. It was part of a larger transportation bill, and she said it was her idea. She had been pregnant in September, walked by some parking spaces for disabled people that were empty and thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great if I could park there? And being a lawmaker, she decided to craft a law and tucked it into a larger transportation bill. She spoke about it briefly during a subcommittee meeting, and it passed easily.
Well, being that there's people against this, is there any chance this law could be overturned?
Well, I just spoke with the lawyer in the case earlier today. He was expecting an answer from the state on how the state would, the state's, legal response, what it would be. The state has filed a motion to dismiss. They're saying that Olivia Keller, who's the plaintiff, has to show that she personally was harmed by this, that she encountered a situation where she was looking for a spot and could not find it. Otherwise, they say she can't prove that she was harmed by this law. So her lawyer, Matthew Dietz of Nova Southeastern University, he is crafting his response as we speak, and he does not believe that's a valid reason for a motion to dismiss, and he plans to proceed with the lawsuit.
Carrie, why aren't there more spaces set aside for both pregnant people and people with permanent disabilities? I mean, can't the rest of us just walk a few more steps?
The Americans with Disabilities Act allows for a certain percentage of parking spots to be set aside for disabled people. Usually that's between 2 and 4% of any space that is in a public area, right? In Florida, there are like 1.3 million drivers who are disabled out of 18 million drivers. So that comes out to about 7% of drivers are permanently disabled in Florida, and they have about 2 to 4% of the spots. So as you can see, the math there doesn't really add up. If you're disabled, you have a limited number of spots that are available to you. So that's why some companies you'll see have put up signs that say this is for expectant mothers. There's certain parking for expectant mothers, but it's separate from the disabled spaces. So this is Florida's attempt to merge those two as pregnancy and disability, but while saying that pregnancy is not a disability, it's a thorny situation.
It is, and both sides of the argument have some good points. Thank you so much for this story, Carrie Sheridan, and we'll be watching and listening for you for any updates on this lawsuit or anything else that's happening with this law. Thanks for your reporting, Carrie. We have been speaking to WUSF's Carrie Sheridan about her reporting for passes on pregnant people. Carrie, thank you. And up next, if you've got another gift to pick up last minute, we do have some suggestions for you. Because who doesn't love a really good book to cozy up with during the holidays? You are listening to Florida Matters, live and local, and more to come after this.
On the next Fresh Air, actor Will Arnett. He stars in the new film, Is This Thing On?, about a man going through a divorce who finds himself on stage doing stand-up. Arnett co-wrote the movie, which is directed by Bradley Cooper. We talk about the film, his extensive voiceover career, and his popular Smartless podcast. Join us.
Hi, this is Jane from WUSF. Happy holidays from our family to yours. Your friendship is the best gift we could ask for. Thanks for spending time with us at WUSF.
Watch an audition like no other at Dogs Inc. in Palmetto, Florida. One More Time with Feeling brings a young woman's story to the stage, a journey that leads her to her guide dog. More at dogsinc.org/feeling.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Kathy Carter. Well, have you procrastinated on your holiday shopping? Are you a last-minute Santa? Well, time is quickly running out, shoppers. It is the day before Christmas Eve, but no need to panic, though. A good book makes a perfect gift, and there are plenty of great local bookstores across the greater Tampa Bay region where you can pick up a few great reads. And we can offer a few suggestions. Over the course of 2025, I got to chat with a variety of authors with books ranging from Florida history to romantic comedies. And one of the standouts was a fictional crime thriller written by Florida native Joe Pan. And since we spoke in August, his debut novel, Florida Palms, has made more than one year-end best list for crime fiction. The storyline follows two teenagers fresh out of high school in Central Florida during the Great Recession. As Joe Pan told me, it's a tale of back alley deals that test the bounds of friendship.
So one of my good friends called this book The Redneck Godfather, which is hilarious, and I really enjoy that. But go into this book knowing that it's crime fiction that I tried to elevate, that it's going to be a slow burn, that it's really character driven. It has its fast parts, it has its crazy meaty parts, it has its violence, it has the things that people go into thrillers for. But I was looking for a more dynamic way to tell this story that is very real and true to me, which is the story of people struggling in Central Florida.
And your story was partially informed by your own childhood growing up in Melbourne, a land of haves and have-nots.
Yeah, the tourism is like the number one moneymaker in my area outside of the defense industry and the space and aeronautic industry, right? So people coming down are going to have this sense of it being a lovely vacation spot. And when I tell people like where it's at, they're like, oh, I've been to Melbourne. Downtown Melbourne's the cutest place. I've been to Meg O'Malley's. There's this little French bistro I really love there. And I don't disagree with them. Those are lovely, lovely things. But as I said in the book, if you walk down this one alley that posts a sign saying that Al Capone shot a game of pool there, if you walk down the alley, you go to the back, you'll see workers throwing dice for food stamps. You have to look behind the sheen, the curtain, the veil to see another part of that.
Yeah, these characters are trying to survive in a system that has given them very few good options, but you've given them a lot of depth. They're anti-heroes in some ways because you do kind of root for them to rise above their situation.
I try to show the brutal moral calculations of people under pressure, right? And what it means to do the right thing when there's no clear path. So what is the right thing for you in those circumstances, especially when there's nobody looking out for you or it doesn't feel like that? And one of the big themes in this book is, what codes do we live by? And you find that in this group of people, this club that they form, this drug gang, the moral code really has to do with kind of brotherhood. It's about people sticking together. What this group feeds off of is this sense that people need each other, which is really wonderful, and we're social creatures, we need each other, but that can be utilized for nefarious purposes.
There are a lot of stereotypes about Florida in pop culture. How did your experience as a Floridian shape your story?
Well, that's a great question. And Florida can't help but be a character, right? It attacks people with mosquitoes. People are hiding out. It's the capital of lightning and UFO sightings, but also the capital of serial killers, all of these things that feed into that mythos. It interested me in the same way that a lot of these tropes and mythologies interest me, right? You start off from a place of storytelling and then work your way back into the real human element, or at least that's how I see fiction. You give people kind of what they've heard about and what they like, and then you show them the deeper well, and you personalize it. And for me, Florida works as a character in that way. Atmosphere and sense of place is really big. Hopefully the audience will sit with the atmosphere of the place, that in fact builds out a larger superstructure in which to investigate these characters.
And that was author Joe Pan talking about his debut novel. It's called Florida Palms. If you're just tuning in to Florida Matters, live and local, we're talking about books and holiday giving. If you know someone whose idea of a good time is diving into a fun beach read, we have an idea. As a Last Resort is a sweet and sassy romantic comedy by Tampa writer Kristen Wallet. In the story, a big city real estate developer reluctantly returns to her Florida beachfront hometown to close a business deal. It's a rom-com, so naturally she runs into her teenage crush. When we spoke in September, Kristen Wallet agreed As a Last Resort has a 1990s rom-com vibe and even alludes to some classic romance movies.
I thought back to all of the moments in my life where love has impacted me through film. These moments when you see something that formatively shapes how you feel about love. And The Little Mermaid was one of my favorite movies when I was little. And there is this scene in the movie where Ariel and Eric are in the boat and Sebastian starts singing that song, Kiss the Girl. And it's that moment where you sort of lean into the TV and you are just rooting for them. But then, right before they kiss, the eels tip the boat and they crash into the water and the kiss never happens. But that moment was so pivotal to learn in storytelling, because I realized you don't root for love in a book or a film if it's easy. There has to be tension. There have to be forces that are working overtime to keep two destined people apart. And that kind of love that's sort of destined, no matter what stands in their way, that's the type of love worth writing about.
And we should say that your story is more than a romance. Without giving too much away, it does deal with grief and addiction in some realistic ways. Why did you decide to include this plot point, and how did you think about counterbalancing that with the romance narrative?
One of the reasons people love romance is because it's an escape of some sort, a guaranteed happily ever after. But what if the romance could look a little more human? When I see a heroine in a novel that has to fight harder to overcome her own demons, she's more real to me. And the reality of this life is that sometimes we're thrown curveballs. And the love stories that I want to write look more like real life. I want to show people that love and hope exist even in the darkest of spaces.
You are a Floridian. This book is set in the fictional town of Rock Island, Florida. But are there any towns in our area that may have inspired your creation?
So the main inspiration was actually Boca Grande. I grew up on that island in the summers. My dad used to park his Hobie cat right on the beach at the Boca Grande Club. It has this quaint feel of a small town where everyone knows your name. Businesses are handed down through generations. I remember the Loose Caboose, which was the pink ice cream parlor in the middle of Boca Grande, and that would be the highlight of any trip that we would take there.
In addition to writing, you also act, and you are a mom to 5 young kids. So how did you navigate finding time to write?
I will level with you here. I am not some Instagram perfect family where I always have a clean house and I make dinner every night. Although I do sing my kids to sleep at night. But my house is a mess. We have a pool table that has been used exclusively for laundry for the past 4 years. I wrote As a Last Resort in 1 hour increments at a time while my littles napped. But I am a big proponent of doing one thing every day to get closer to my goal. And if my goal is to finish a book, cleaning up Cheerios isn't really the priority when I have a free second. But there's something to be said about my children seeing me chase a dream and then also seeing your dad encourage your mom and lift her up in a way that helps her reach it. Like, that's the kind of love story that is rooted in sacrifice and in real world. And that kind of love story is priceless for me to be able to model for my kids.
That was Kristen Wallet, writer from Tampa, talking about her book called As a Last Resort. You are listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Kathy Carter, in for Matthew Petty. Next up in our list of holiday book-giving ideas is a real-life story, The Great Florida Cattle Drive. by Sarasota-based journalist Isaac Eager takes readers on an 80-mile journey through what remains of Florida's ranchlands. The book has lots of stories and really beautiful photos of the 2022 trek. That was when hundreds of people on horseback pushed 500 head of cattle through 80 contiguous miles of Florida. Now, when we spoke in March, I asked Isaac Eager to tell us where the journey began.
Well, we're in the Kissimmee area, and what was kind of funny was we drove our vehicles to the Silver Spurs Rodeo, and it was about a 30-minute car drive, but it would take us 7 days and 7 nights on horseback to get there. So it wasn't a straight line. I described it as a child's crayon drawing, just kind of like looping around all over the place, because there isn't a straight line to go through in Florida anymore. There's just too many fences, too many roads.
Too much development?
Exactly.
You grew up in Sarasota, but you say you didn't always appreciate being a Floridian. Why is that?
Because there wasn't a sense of self as a kid growing up in public school here. They taught us, about the Calusa and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but there wasn't like a strong sense of Florida identity growing up. Because everyone who's from here isn't really from here. My folks are from up north. And it wasn't until I left Florida for more than a decade and I came back and I just realized how fascinating this place is and how much I missed out on.
So you don't exactly have cowboy credentials, so how did you end up doing on this almost 7-day journey on horseback?
They would end up upgrading me. The first horse they gave me was a trail horse named Penny, and it was a little small for me. I'm kind of a big guy, and they were all teasing me because they said I could probably smack my heels together underneath the horse. It was so small. But then I proved myself to be a capable rider, and they upgraded me to this painted gated horse. And a lot of the younger girls on the ride convinced me to go on a gallop when we got to a prairie. And I didn't fall off the horse, another little bit of pride. But I was pretty scared. It's pretty intense.
And what are some things about this journey that still stay with you?
I think when you see Florida how it's meant to be, these massive horizons and these long plateaus of just land, of wild green land everywhere. Just to see what Florida was supposed to look like and could and should still look like. When you're on a horseback, you really see God's creation that way.
So with suburban sprawl gobbling up pasture lands, what is the goal of the cattle drive?
The drive is to remember. I think I say in the book, to not remember something is to have something die twice. And so these people who are on this ride, many of them are generations deep Florida crackers, and they're very proud of that. And that culture is being erased. When people from the north come, they bring their memories of their home with them, and that pushes out the memories of this place. So for the people on the drive, it is about remembering. It's about respecting and trying to preserve what remains of Florida's history.
And each night after a long day on horseback, you and the other participants would camp at night. What was that experience like?
The Cattle Association that put this drive on was unbelievably organized because they had breakfast and dinner for us at every camping spot. And this is 350 riders and 500 heads of cattle. That is a lot. It's an absolute feat that they managed to do this. It's just for the love of it. I mean, they're not really looking to turn a profit. These aren't people who are motivated by money. They love the land.
There will be more cattle drives, so it sounds like something that you would recommend somebody do.
If you got a horse, you should probably go do it. But it is rough. I will tell you, your butt's going to hurt. Although I will say I felt so much better being sore on a horse than sitting behind a computer at an office all day. That felt much more natural to me.
And that was Isaac Eager speaking about his book. It's called The Great Florida Cattle Drive. Now, if that sounds intriguing, you will be happy to hear the next Florida Cattle Drive is scheduled to take place at the end of January 2026, so saddle up. Now, we've been talking about holiday gift-giving ideas day before Christmas Eve on Florida Matters Live and Local. We can also recommend for history buffs a book called A Town Without Pity. It's a real-life story. It recounts two stories from Arcadia's past, which focus on racism and a 1980s AIDS panic. You might remember the Ray brothers. Another rom-com was by Linda Holmes, an NPR pop culture host, and that one is called Back After This. It centers on a 30-something podcast producer who reluctantly agrees to host a show focused on improving her dating life. Those interviews can be found on her website. It's WUSF.org. So happy giving and happy reading. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local. More to come after this.
I'm Scott Tong. We look at where AI is today and where it's going. Many companies think today's AI can do what humans do.
One company laid off a bunch of workers, and then they actually had to call back their workers because it turned out that AI could not do the job.
AI hits and misses. Next time, here and now.
Hey, it's Gabriella Paul, your affordability reporter here at WUSF. Wishing you a very happy holiday from me and everyone here at the station during this season of giving.
From litigation to legislation, a lot happens in Florida's capital city, and it happens fast. You're busy. It can be so hard to stay up to date on the information you need to know. Good news. I'm here in Tallahassee to catch it all and relay it to you. I'm Douglas Soul, the state government reporter for the Your Florida team. Visit WUSF.org/YourFlorida to learn what our leaders are doing and how it affects you.
At WUSF, support comes from the people who listen, like you. Also, the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, offering online master's programs designed to support new goals at the start of a new year. More information at onlinemasters.jou.ufl.edu.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Kathy Carter. When talking about burlesque, some people may typically think of strip clubs and exotic dancers. The 2010 movie starring Cher and Christina Aguilera may also come to mind.
It's a cold and crazy world that's raging outside. But baby, me and all my girls are bringing on the fire. Show a little leg, gotta shimmy your chest. It's a life, it's a style, it's a need, it's burlesque.
But there is more to burlesque than the intimacy in the performances or nudity. Its roots go back to the late 1800s and vaudeville performances. By the 1950s, burlesque became a celebration of the uniqueness of women. It views the woman's body as art and decenters the male gaze. Women like Gypsy Rose Lee, Lily St. Cyr, and Tempest Storm, known as the Queen of Burlesque, helped solidify burlesque as a respected art form that features dancing, yes, tasteful nudity and comedy. There were also black women burlesque dancers, breaking racial barriers and making the art popular in the black community. Josephine Baker in the 1920s, Jean Idell in the 50s, and Brown Girls Burlesque in the 2000s. Neo-burlesque revived the art form in the 1990s. It is more inclusive, incorporates more acrobatics and athleticism. Our guest today is a star all around the world, including right here in Tampa Bay. Queen Lolita is a feature entertainer, an international burlesque performer. She's also known as the sweetheart of the South. Queen Lolita, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
How long have you been performing burlesque, and how did you get started?
I've been performing burlesque for about 3 years now. I got started actually behind the scenes. I assisted a lot on shows doing what is called stage kittening, which is helping the performers pick up their clothes, set up their props. And I also was a door girl for a time. I did a lot of that. And then somehow ended up on stage. Yeah, that's kind of how that happened.
Well, where are some of the places around the world that you've performed?
Tampa actually has, and Florida in general, has a pretty robust burlesque community. So I don't have as much time as I'd like to go further. But the furthest I've gone so far has been Asia. I performed in Japan and Korea, and that was really great.
Are the audiences different from the United States to overseas at all?
For sure. I think performing in a more conservative culture was very different for me. People are a little shy at first, but then they loosen up and, it can be really fun, but awkward in the beginning.
Well, burlesque has never really been all about sexuality and nudity, but it is often misunderstood, right? So what is it really about?
So burlesque is about storytelling at the end of the day. It can be comedic. It can be emotional. Some people can be moved to tears by certain performances. It has definitely happened to me. And it's, I think, a really big form of self-expression. And, the striptease is a part of it. It's an integral part of what makes it what it is. But it's so much more than that at the end of the day.
Now, I saw your Instagram feed, and the costumes are amazing. The costumes are a big part of it, too, right?
Yes. I think the costumes are my favorite part. I think it's kind of like putting on a superhero cape,
Right.
I get to become who I really want to be when I hit that stage and when I'm in my costume. So I love that.
So striptease, as we said, was a really big part of burlesque in the 1950s. How is it what we see today different?
I think what we see today is a little different, not by much. I think we keep that element. But I've also seen reverse stripteases where they're putting clothes on. I've seen people who focus more on acrobatics or aerial these days. So I think it's changed a lot from the classic style, which is great. I love seeing, all the different ways people can get creative with the striptease. It's really interesting. People have done things I've never thought of in my life. So I love seeing the creativity.
Now, you spoke about putting on your superhero cape.
Yes.
What are some other ways that burlesque empowers you and helps you become more self-aware and confident?
I think that being in full control of how you present yourself to an audience is a very empowering feeling. It's also quite vulnerable, to be in front of an audience and put all that out on display. But it's really powerful. I really like having the control over my music, my costuming, the lighting. It's very theatrical, and I love that about it.
We are speaking with Queen Lolita here at WUSF, Florida Matters Live and Local. If you'd like to chime in, you can call 813-755-6562, or you can email us, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Now, you said the Tampa Bay area has a very robust burlesque scene. Can you talk to us more about what's happening in Tampa Bay?
Yes, there are a lot of shows in Tampa and in Florida in general. Florida has quite the community. There's a lot going on in South Florida, and there's a lot going on in North Florida as well. As far as Tampa, Ybor has a lot of performances, of course. We have a lot going on in St. Pete. There's burlesque for everyone out here. Whatever suits you, you're going to find it, and I love that.
Now, you're a feature entertainer, known as the Sweetheart of the South. It is said that burlesque never dies. Even when it's doubted and forgotten about, it never really goes away. So what keeps the art form burlesque around, do you think?
I think that no matter what, even though, live entertainment has its ebbs and flows, I think that no matter what, people are going to have a thirst for live entertainment. I don't think anything quite compares. Especially seeing someone dance with a live band or seeing all the different things that you can bring to a stage. I don't think that it'll ever go out of style. I really don't.
Now, you spoke earlier about how you got your start was helping out. So if somebody is listening to this and they're interested in knowing how to get started, what are some suggestions you might have for them?
So the first thing I would suggest is go to the shows. It's very important to go to the shows. You can learn a lot just by watching those who are experienced, watching performers who you admire and look up to, seeing what they do, and not trying to imitate, but just taking some notes, taking classes. Take classes. You can always learn more, Even I can learn more, So I think it's important. I would say those are the two most important things for someone wanting to start.
Now, if I were to attend a burlesque show, is it a single performance? Is it, just the Queen Lolita show? Or is it typically have, a number of different performances lasting How long, actually?
So there will be multiple performers, and it depends on whether it's floor or stage. But if it's a stage show, you could have anywhere from 7 to 8 performers. If it's a smaller cast, they may perform twice. So it wouldn't, be the Queen Lolita show. We'd have performers from everywhere, sometimes out of state. Sometimes performers come up from South Florida, perform here. So there's a bunch of performers that are amazing and incredible that travel all over.
Do men do burlesque?
Yes.
Talk to us about some
Men
of
do burlesque.
that.
The great thing about burlesque, and I think is probably my favorite thing, is that it is for everybody. There's no limitations. There's no limitations to what you can bring to the stage, who you are. It's your self-expression. I have seen men do incredible burlesque. So it's definitely for everyone. It doesn't matter your gender, your size, your race. You can do it.
Now, if you were going to a burlesque performance, who are some of your favorites, and what do you like to see as a participant? Not a participant, I should say, but as somebody who is going to the show. What do you look forward to seeing?
I really look forward to seeing a lot of dancing. I like to see people dance. It's exciting when you can tell that someone knows the song and loves it. There's a difference to the movement. And that's kind of something I always look for. Costumes aside, even though costumes are great, it really is about this performer is loving what they're doing. And you can tell. It elevates the performance. So I would say some performers that I really enjoy watching. I really enjoy watching Emma Jewell.
Okay.
She is in Orlando.
Okay.
And she's incredible, very passionate. Giselle Ardente is in South Florida. There's just so many, honestly.
Wow, yeah.
Florida has a lot of talent.
It sounds like it. Now, where can people see you perform live?
So I do have some shows coming up. I'm at the Ball in St. Pete tomorrow. Actually, yay. And you can find me there 8 p.m. to 12. I will be with Katie James Burlesque. And you can find me at the Ritchie Suncoast Theater, New Year's Eve. That is a Tila Topaz production. That's going to be very fun. That's a big stage show. It's going to be great. And then in Cocoa Beach at the Alibi. And that's produced by Kiss Yvonne Adams, and that'll be a great time as well.
Now, you mentioned, you really love the music, you love the costumes. What about props? Do you use any kind of stagecraft to, bring the show more to life that helps you get into that character?
That's a great question. Personally, I am not a huge fan of using props. Okay. And, I think some people may have noticed, I really like seeing where the music takes me. And I do sometimes feel like, for me personally, a prop gets in the way. And so, usually I won't use them. I've used them from time to time, but it's not my style.
Gotcha. Now, there's conventions for pretty much anything these days, right? There's BritCon for Legos in Atlanta in February. The Tampa Bay Comic Con happens every year. Any conventions for burlesque that you're aware of?
Actually, yes.
Okay.
So there's BurlyCon, and there's also... There's also the Burlesque Hall of Fame. That's in Las Vegas. That's a huge one. That one's great. And then almost every state, but every region will have a burlesque festival where, performers from all over, local, out of the country sometimes will showcase their talents. And that's very nice because you can see the different showcases. There's vendors, there's classes. It's a great way to build community as well. And it's a great stepping stone, if you want to take burlesque further.
Okay, well, wonderful. This is a fun conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been speaking to Queen Lolita, the sweetheart of the South, an international burlesque performer. Thank you so much for coming in today. And that is our show for today. Florida Matters, Live and Local, is taking a holiday break. We'll be gone until the new year, but here and now, we'll keep you updated on the latest in national news. And we're looking forward to a lot more conversations on Florida Matters, Live and Local. That's starting January 5th. Florida Matters executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horst. Our engineer is Jackson Harp, and he also composed our theme music with that wonderful Christmas flair. Subscribe to Florida Matters Live and Local wherever you get your podcasts, and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. Chandler Baucom did our video. I'm Kathy Carter. Have a great holiday season. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening and watching.
In India-controlled Kashmir, local artisans make Christmas ornaments out of papier-mâché. This year, tariffs are getting in the way of livelihoods.